Hey, Jack.
Hey, Trevor, how are you?
I'm doing great. Welcome back to another episode of Hey Jack, Leadership Reflections with Jack Nalig. Jack, I have something. I think it's a little funny story here, and I want to come right to the source of this to get the answer. Uh, Back when I first joined Phoenix Contact back in 2011, I think it was. I think it was my very first day. We were, I think we walked by to introduce ourselves to you. I don't think you were there that particular day, and my manager at the time was telling me about Jack, and she had mentioned something that I it confused me. She said, "Oh yeah, Jack's a servant leader." And to this day, that was the very first Google search I made on company laptop. What is a servant leader? I have since come to know what that meant and saw you live it out. But I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there who aren't aware of this. And I think it's such a valuable, concept. And so what is a servant leader, Jack? And where does it fit into the leadership principles and fundamentals and everything that, we embellish here on this Hey Jack podcast?
Well, great topic, Trevor. But first of all, I wish you would have told me that when that happened because I would have needed to Google it at that time too.
There wasn't much out there, I'll tell you that.
Well, yeah. So, because I didn't know I was a servant leader, I was just thinking I was a positivity, people-based kind of leader,
Yeah.
and that's the way I rolled. And I would say only in the last, call it 10 years, did I really learn much about servant leadership, and I'm still not an expert on it. That's for sure. But from what I read and the things I experienced, servant leadership, I would have to say, sure does fit the way I believe leadership should be done, right? So it's a good naming of a discipline. If someone asks you what style of leadership do you follow, I guess I would say servant leadership. And not too long ago, I was on a podcast by a local company in Lancaster called the Servant Leadership Library, I think
And
is the
we'll
name of
we'll
it.
drop a link to that in the show notes as
Yeah,
well,
that
because
would
it's a
be
great,
great
great
because
episode.
they've done 70 or 80 at least interviews with presidents, CEOs, VPs on servant leadership, and there's a lot of great knowledge in there. So anyway, so I guess it's a leadership style I would orient myself around, or you could say that's what I'm oriented around. Um, and people can go look it up, do all the Googling and learn tons about it. But I'm going to give them maybe the short course right here, right now. And it's real, not too hard, right? I think everybody's probably heard about the upside down pyramid concept, right? So you have your org chart that's a pyramid, president at the top, first line workers at the bottom, looks like a pyramid. Well, the first fundamental of servant leadership is you turn that thing upside down. And what does that mean, right? Well, it what it means is that everybody then above the president, right? The president works for them, and the next layer works for them, and everybody at the bottom works for the one at the top.
Yeah.
Because when you take the traditional one, that's what first comes to your mind. Oh, well, the person at the top, everybody works for them. Well, you flip it upside down and it's the other way around. You say, whoa. So the president works for everybody and
Yeah.
the VPs work their disciplines and everybody's working for everybody going that way. So you say, wow, that's interesting thought process. What's funny is none of us should be surprised about that. That's the way we all ought to think about it. And there's one real fundamental reason why. So let's think about that bottom of the pyramid group of people, right? Who are they? Well, they're everybody from, I'll just name a bunch of disciplines, warehouse workers, factory operators, people building products, an accounting clerk doing AR, accounts receivable for customers, sales people, right?
Yeah.
There's nobody below them. It's just them. So it's all the people that have nobody below them, if you will, on the org chart. And then you ask it again, who are they? Well, the real answer to that question is they are the people that are the ones that serve the customer directly. They literally serve the customer. on a day in and day out basis. The old days on a phone. Now it's all email. But it doesn't matter. They're the ones the customer interacts with first, if you will, to your company. So obviously, those are the most important people in your company. Those people who are taking care of and interacting with your customers, they are literally the most important people in the company. You can't argue they're not. They are. They're delivering your product, they're delivering your service, they're building the relationship of your customer to the company. So when anybody thinks about it, this should always be the way the org chart's looked at because of that one fundamental principle that the people at the bottom of the org chart are the ones that are talking to, taking
Yeah.
care of, and being there for your customers. So that's the first fundamental of servant leadership. It's the up, down, down org chart. And people can understand how I believe that works and why it works, right? The second way to think about that org chart is there's two little phrases that sum it up. And in this one, it's a command and control structure. A command comes from the top, it goes down through everybody to the bottom. Whereas the other one, you go upside down, it's about support and development,
Hmm.
right? So it's command and control in the old org chart, support and development in the new chart. I am there for you when you need help to remove a barrier, to approve something, whatever. And I'm here to develop you in your position to help you do better every day, right? So that's the second fundamental. You've got the image of the pyramid first and why that's important. The second one is it's about getting rid of this command and control theory and thinking about a support and development theory with your people. And you can sum that up that a leader should say, I work for you, you don't work for me.
Mhm.
And that one's really tough for leaders to swallow because they
Yeah.
thought they were getting promoted and people
Yes.
were working for them. And that one, they just choke on having to say that. But if every leader said that every morning in a little leadership mirror, said, I now go work for my people, they don't work for me, and now I'll go to work. It's a complete turnaround
Yeah.
of your leadership mindset.
Yeah.
So those are the most important images I try to keep in my head about servant leadership, and they've always helped guide me. If you look it up, there's 7 principles of servant leadership. There's the 3 C's of it, and
Okay.
I'll let people Google some of that and see it. But the 3 C's are, as an example, are competence as a leader, character as a leader, and compassion.
Okay. Interesting.
And I think everybody would agree on competence. You want a competent leader,
Yep.
but one of high character, moral integrity is very, very important. And having compassion, caring about your people and the journey they're on is also very, very important. So I would sum up this thought process by saying you've got to embrace the concept of I'm going to be highly competent, I'm going to have high moral character and integrity, and I'm going to be a compassionate individual to my team members. Then I think you got it. You're kind of heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I felt firsthand. I think one of the things that is, and maybe an unintended benefit of this is the culture that it actually builds within the organization. When you have that servant leadership and then, the other leaders are embracing that and seeing firsthand, that's what I've noticed. It didn't matter who I talked to or interacted with. Um, they were all, you know, everyone's helping everybody. Everyone is
Mhm.
working towards that same goal, and we never had that impression of, um, you know, I can only do this because of this authority of this person that's kinda got everyone had that same support system of training, development,
Mhm.
learning, common goal, and it really did build, I think, a great culture that's, because another one that we had mentioned is that, you're a very positive opinion leader as well, positive, friendly, and so forth as well, and I think that serves very well. It goes hand in hand, but I love that visual pyramid concept of you're kinda putting yourself there at the bottom supporting everybody versus the traditional way. And
Mhm.
I personally think that's what separates, a lot of great companies from good companies is just
Yeah.
the approach and view they take on how they're building their teams and more so supporting their customers. Cause that's is the
Mhm.
biggest shock I had day one was how much emphasis there was on the customer. And
Yeah.
the only other example I had prior of that was an anomaly, which was at the time Zappos. I just read a book by Delivering Happiness, I think it was called or something, and there's a case study on how much they put the customer first. And
Mhm.
I was blown away walking into a B2B environment and seeing that level of attention on the customer,
Yeah.
being and it reflected, it showed of, like, how valued the company was by our customers, and I think that's a
Mhm.
byproduct of that approach, so I'm
Yeah.
glad I made that Google search that day, but I'm glad that you had adapted that to the point where I was able to make that Google search to find out what this was.
Well, thank you. You're too kind. And again, I didn't follow it when I was growing up as a leader. I just sort of accidentally fell into this model, and really believe it's the proper orientation we all should have to the generals of leadership and the general foundations of leadership. And yes, can you adapt it and move it in certain directions? Sure. If you're maybe a startup company versus a big formal multi-billion company, yes. But there's just such good in it, right? It's really the right way we should all approach it. And I would encourage everybody then to go reach out and do a Googling on this. And like you said, we will drop some things, but there is a Center for Servant Leadership, and it's at Seton Hall University now.
Oh,
And
nice.
it was founded by, I think the guy's name Greenside, Robert Greenside, or I don't think it's Greenlee. Yeah, Greenside in the 1970. And now it's all being, stewarded by this Center of Servant Leadership. And they have a lot of great content there if you want to read about it.
Yeah,
So
nice, and we'll put some links below here in the comments as well, so
super.
awesome. Anything else to add to that, Jack, before we wrap up
No,
today?
I think that sums it up.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad that you shared that with the masses as well. I'm glad that I had that experience to live it firsthand. And until next time, we'll be back with another episode of Hey Jack. Thank you all for tuning in and listening. Thanks, Jack.
You bet. Take care, everybody. Go lead.